So Ben Smith, in his latest piece for Semaphore, which carries the headline, How to Resist the Epstein Temptation. And in it, Ben writes this: there's obviously great fun in watching the world's dumbest media revolution. The social media Epstein detectives, led by podcasters turned Keystone cops, devour children. There are political incentives for Democrats to join MAGA in stoking wild theories. And there are good non-conspiratorial questions about how Epstein linked business, social climbing, and sex. Maybe investigative documents, perhaps including the files Trump ordered released, can answer some of those questions. But those of us trying to stay sane ought to keep in mind the distinction between evidence and speculation, fantasy and reality. So, Ben, I mean, it's a great piece. Talk to us more about it. We discussed earlier in the show. It is sort of consuming the White House right now. There's a lot of anger. They feel like they've put down some of the civil war, at least for the moment, but they do live in fear that more revelations could come and it'll be all stirred up again. But talk to us about how you think we should be approaching the story.
Well, first of all, I mean, it's good to see the president has actually already solved this for us by providing the most fun thing to talk about, football team names, as an alternative. Yeah. But I mean, I just think that there is this, and you have seen it on the right over the last several years, how fun it is to accuse your enemies of being pedophiles and involved in a very complex conspiracy. And honestly, that's an age-old tradition that you see everywhere. You know, Epstein, obviously disgusting criminal, but this is one of the most investigated stories by prosecutors, by journalists in American history. And I think the notion that there is some revelation specifically about Donald Trump in those files that is going to change things kind of reminds me of the Mueller chase back in 2017, right around the corner. There is some smoking gun that never emerges. I mean, I think what's so strange about it is that Donald Trump's personal life in the 1980s and 90s, possibly not the most upstanding behavior in American history. Again, super widely documented. He's talked extensively about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. I just think there's an impulse to say, well, if MAGA indulges in insane conspiracies about Bill Clinton, it's like the turn of Democrats to spend a year on insane conspiracy theories, and I feel like that's, at least as journalists, something we ought to resist.
Well, and Ben, we've had on over the past week, just to underline all this, we reported on, of course, the fight inside MAGA, which to me at least seemed like the relevant part of this story, because we had Ken Dilanian, David Rode, and Tom Winter up front saying, you can believe what you want to believe. But we have been reporting for 2-3 years. There's no magic file. There's no magic political bullet in there. You're not going to open this up. I mean, it's going to end up basically being the political equivalent of Al Capone's tomb. There's going to be no there. That's what Tom Winter was saying. And when we talked to Ken Dilanian at the end of the week, just to underline that fact, he said, I'm at the Aspen Security conference at the Forum. Nobody out here is talking about, Epstein. They're talking about Israel, Gaza. They're talking about Syria's new government. They're talking about China. They're talking about Russia, which really leads to your point here. Again, you can talk about it if you want to, but if MAGA's not divided on this, chances are good, according at least to NBC News, there's not going to be any smoking gun coming out over the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it is also incredibly entertaining to watch people hoisted by their own petards on this one.
True.
And, I mean,
True
but I have to say, since I wrote that piece, the email I've gotten a ton of email that's basically how dare you look away from the smoking gun that will finally stop Donald Trump, and I don't think that's a reasonable thing to think.
Did you ask them where they were from 21 to 25? If the Democrats thought that there was a smoking gun on Donald Trump, I suspect somebody in the, quote, deep state would have released that between 21 and 25 when Joe Biden was president.
Yeah, it's a very good conspiracy.
Very good conspiracy. Very tight. Jen, what do you think?
I mean, these things never turn out to be what you think they're going to be. There's never, I mean, like I've been in government for a long time. There's never the big smoking gun, and I have never thought that there was some kind of if there's an actual list that would have been leaked a long time ago. But his behavior, like I've worked in White Houses for a long time, and when they're mishandling a story so badly you can't figure out why, usually it's because the boss is giving questionable orders. And I don't understand, Jonathan, like you've written a lot about this, I don't understand why Trump is handling it as badly as he is. I mean, and also, I do think they do need to own the fact that Jonathan and Ashley Parker had a great piece in The Atlantic about this yesterday. It's like, you can't run on conspiracy theories and then be like, nothing to see here after you're elected. And explain, why doesn't he, I don't understand why he's being so weird about it. He being Trump, trying to distract us to however many Truth Social posts over the weekend. And why don't you just come out and say, you know what, we looked at this. There's not a lot. There's nothing really there, and yeah, maybe we amped it up too much because we didn't know and we looked at it. But they won't actually do that.
No, and there's been a divide in the White House how to handle this. And you're right. Some of it is because the president is giving very angry, at times contradictory instructions as to what to do. And it's not because necessarily people think, oh, there is some sort of criminal smoking gun, but rather it is embarrassing, and there could be more things that come out that are just going to look bad for him, and distract from what he wants to talk about, which he says are his 6 months of accomplishments. But the story, they put it to bed a little bit, but it's not going away. And we'll need to see what the next couple of days go. 704's editor-in-chief, Ben Smith, thank you for that piece and for bringing it to us. It's available to read online now. Joe, I mean, this is something where the president, he hit his 6-month mark in office the other day, in fact, and took to Truth Social, put a long post up there. Look at all these accomplishments. Yeah. Why aren't we talking about any of this? And it's in part because his team is, at least to this point, he and his team have not handled this story particularly well. Yeah.
Do we still have Ben?
Yeah, he's here.
He's still tied to the chair, so he can't go yet. Ben, we didn't even ask you about actually the most fascinating part of this story that's come out the past 4 days, and that is the lawsuit against Rupert Murdoch. Give us your take on that and where you think that ends.
I think it's pretty remarkable. You've seen a lot of media owners trim their sails, cave, fire people in response to pressure from Donald Trump. And Rupert Murdoch, who a lot of us have covered for a very long time, I think has been tougher on Trump than basically any of his peers. The Wall Street Journal editorial page, very, very critical of the president. And you do get the sense that Murdoch, who is in his 90s, believes that he is going to be here long after Donald Trump is gone, and that he's sticking to his guns in a way that, because he's also been doing this a lot longer than the Jeff Bezoses and Patrick Soon-Shiong's. I think he understands, publishers are forever, politicians come and go.
Publishers are forever, and we speak, of course, of a man who endorsed Tony Blair when he figured out Tony Blair was going to be prime minister. Yeah, he's John Lemire. He's been around a long time, and I think the feeling is that News Corp's going to be around much longer than any president.
And we have seen the Wall Street Journal editorial page be very tough on President Trump,
tough.
And the
day
newsroom
in,
here,
day out.
And the newsroom here, led by Emma Tucker, doing the same. Ben, thank you again. Yeah.